Hello and welcome to the Humans of Growth podcast, where we talk about the stories and strategies behind business growth and development. I'm your host, Aly Hathcock, and today's episode is sponsored by Parison Network, the new way for businesses to find the perfect fit marketing agency. If you're looking for marketing support and don't know where to turn or where to look, Parison Network has you covered with free agency searches for businesses. No strings attached. You can go to parisonnetwork.com to schedule a free strategy session. Today's guest is Nat Robinson, the founder and CEO of Trustworthy. So I don't know about you guys, but I have spent a lot of time over the past couple of years, especially with my parents getting older, my grandparents getting much older, figuring out household systems and how do we manage people's information, people's data across different households in case life happens, to put it nicely. And so Trustworthy kind of comes in, solves that problem of creating this sort of family organization and operating system that kind of puts everything in one place so that if worse comes to worse and flood, tornado, somebody dies in a car wreck, something happens, people have access to the important documents so you can focus on what matters when it matters without searching high and low for what you're looking for. So with that extended introduction, Nat, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ellie. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I introduced the professional side of you, but I'm curious in like a sentence or two, who are you as a human and what is bringing you joy right now?
Yeah, well, it's summer, so I'm getting a lot of joy out of that. But my story is I'm originally from New Zealand. I worked in technology my whole career, and part of that career led me to the United States, working for very large enterprise software companies for most of my career, for about half of my career. And the other half of my career has been really the other end of the spectrum, working at very early stage startups, helping them find product market fit, helping them sort of cross the chasm, if you like, to go from those early adopters to majority users, and really, sort of loving that end of the spectrum where things are being created on a daily basis, things are being invented as you go or made up as you go. You're sort of breathing life into ideas and making them reality has been where I've spent the second half of my career. The thing that led me to what we're building today, Trustworthy, the family operating system, the last company we were acquired by, or we built, was acquired by Microsoft. And literally the same day that we got acquired, my son was born. Both kind of big events in your life, a bit of a windfall, and then this sort of life-changing life that entered my existence and changed everything forever. We're both sort of big, meaningful life moments, one representing a lot of, hard work and effort, and the other one just being a game changer in terms of what this means. Both of those things, led me to consider beyond myself, beyond me and my spouse. Now we have to provide for this other life. What does that mean? What do other people do? And, in talking to friends and family, and now thousands of families, we discovered that they all had some kind of system, what we call a DIY system, that sort of resembles what we built in the family operating system. And they'd all built it from scratch. And I just said, this is crazy. Life in the last generation has evolved significantly. It was relatively simple a generation ago. Now it's more complex. And this phrase we heard again and again, it's all over the place. How do I deal with all these silos of information, hundreds or thousands of bits of things all over? That problem's not going away, we know it. And so we set about building something to help families deal with sort of information overload or feeling overwhelmed by all the things they have to deal with across the household and all the related critical tasks. We said, not every family should have to build that themselves. That's nuts. How could we build something that gets them further, faster? And in a modern, secure, private way.
I love that. And I think it's something that's so needed because until I found you guys, I had never heard of the concept, but everybody I know was doing it, whether you have paper documents in a fire safe or they are in the let's be honest, some are in my backpack and some are God knows where. It's like, how do we take this, put it all together in a way that's really streamlined?
Yeah, and you mentioned sort of the crisis use case. That's a huge one, of course. What if I get hit by a bus? Will my family be okay? Will they know where to go to find all the bits and pieces that they're going to need? Many of our members feel like, or are actually sort of a linchpin, like they know things that other family members don't know. Mm-hmm. So where does the family go to find what we lovingly call the treasure map that's in Trustworthy? The other big use case there's a couple more that have emerged, but one is that day-to-day use case. I'm looking for a bit of information. What's my spouse's social security number or my kid's medical number or insurance number? How do I find that bit of information in the moment that I need it? The thing that I can't remember, or the lots of bits of information I can't remember, I need to grab that quickly and get it somewhere it needs to go. And that's the other common use case. And then lots of our members who are sort of Gen X or now millennials who are thinking about their parents as well. How do I get ahead of this for my loved ones, for my other family members? Those are the big three that we see most often in people considering Trustworthy.
Yeah, I love that because I think like anytime we go through a life transition, whether we're moving a new kid, death, you name it, we always need so many documents. So when I moved to Nashville, some of the stuff was randomly still at my parents' house. And it's like, okay, how much do I have to bribe them to put this in the overnight mail for me? And like, I remember growing up, every once in a while, my dad would be like, I have to ask my brother, remind me what year you were born. And it's like, Dad, come on. So I love that you've solved a problem that so many people have and don't necessarily know they have until they have it. A lot of the times. So I'm curious with that, what has marketing looked like for you guys?
Yeah, marketing, it's really good that you mentioned some of these life moments. I think for a lot of people, those moments are when people take stock of themselves, of their lives, of their household, and say, okay, what could we change here? What could be better? And not everyone necessarily knows what that looks like or what that means. But the moments that we sort of market around are what you would expect. So we're actually coming up on one pretty soon. You're close to mentioning it, like kids going off to college or back to school. There's lots of forms to fill out, and probably at the beginning of summer too. But if you have lots of kids, it's lots of forms, and it's usually the same information over and over. Where does all the information live? How do I get it into those forms quickly? Kids going off to college, sort of empowering them, like, here's your birth certificate, here's your documentation for school. Here, we had one member who shared their medical records with their son because he was going across the other side of the country to school. He'd had lots of broken bones, and she's like, it's inevitable he's going to break more bones. And I want him to have those records so when he ends up in hospital, he can share those with the doctors. Those kinds of stories. But other life moments are, common ones: getting married, getting divorced, of course, having a child, buying, selling a home, taking trips or taking a big overseas trip is one. Retirement, of course, medical diagnoses, mental decline in older parents. Those kinds of things are all moments where people tend to take stock of things. And there's more. I'm just scratching the surface. So we market around those moments. We have a lot of content and guides and some tools. So we have a eulogy writer, for example, if you're dealing with that particular moment, to help you generate something like that quickly. So we do a lot of marketing in that respect. And then because of the nature of our product, we sort of emphasize product-led growth. That there tends to be, you have an ecosystem that gets adopted into Trustworthy, which would include, of course, your spouse or partner, your other loved ones, trustees, guardians, and then inner circle of trust, and then outwardly to any professionals or professional advisors you might work with, like an accountant, estate planning attorney, wealth advisor, insurance broker, realtor. Those are the ones we see the most. But there are all kinds, and that's sort of a natural way as you invite people to have some access to your system and some access to your information that they might need to do their jobs, whether that's now or later. And that's a way for folks to discover Trustworthy through that sort of organic collaboration.
I love that. And I think it's like once one person in the family gets it, by extension, you're sharing are you essentially just adding users to it?
Yeah, we don't limit the number of collaborators you can have in the system because every family is different and dynamic. And we knew this was going to be a multiplayer system from the get-go. So we really encourage you to invite the people that make sense to you. We have sort of different access levels, of course. You can have a full access collaborator that might be your spouse or partner, limited access collaborators who can only see certain categories or bits of information that you want them to see. And then this sort of third category of legacy access collaborator who doesn't see anything today, but they get invited, should there be an emergency, they could unlock your account and get access that way. And there's a process they go through to get verified, to validate that you're not around anymore or you're having an emergency that they can unlock the account and get access.
Yeah, and I think that's so smart because like once one person gets it, everybody else in the family and all those circles of relationships is going to get access as well, and they're getting access to the platform. Here's how it works. They see the benefits without you having to necessarily market to those people individually.
Yeah, I think it's pretty natural when they get invited. They're like, oh, well, I'm a guardian for your children, or I'm a co-parent or something. And then like, well, I need this from my household, from my family, right? And then quite often we get kids saying, Mom, Dad, or for the in-laws, hey, we really want you to get your stuff set up and Trustworthy because it's not only for you, but it's also for us,
It's for the kids' peace of mind as much as it is like the parents.
Yeah, and frankly, you don't want to have a difficult estate transition. The average amount of time in America, I think, is about 18 months. So it's like many people relate it to like having a part-time job in managing all the elements of that estate transition. So the more information you can share ahead of that inevitable, no one gets out of life alive. That inevitable scenario is obviously helpful to everyone involved. And, some people lean into it. Some people don't really want to deal with it, but can be cajoled into it. So there's a spectrum of engagement there.
I love it. So with the collaborators that you can add to your account, let's say I'm the main user. I have all my stuff set up because most of my family is 4 to 15 hours away from me. A medical emergency happens. How do I make sure that my dad gets access to my medical records, but only like then and there, and not access to like the rest of my information that I don't need him knowing?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we have granular permissions around your family operating system that you can choose to share some information right now. Maybe you're going in for a procedure or an operation. You say, hey, I want you to have the information about this and what's happening. So all the documents are in Trustworthy. And if something were to happen, here's my healthcare directive, here's my power of attorney, those kinds of things.
Yep.
But if you didn't want him to have really any access to that information today, he could just be added as a legacy contact, meaning he could go through that unlock process if there was a dire emergency and he needed access to information.
Cool. I love that. So one of the things you mentioned earlier was all of the different use cases. And most of them to some degree, do they feel like they revolve primarily around transition?
I think people, once they get to using Trustworthy, they then appreciate how much they use it on a day-to-day or a weekly basis. Like, when you're done with onboarding, you pretty much have all your information in your pocket, meaning on our mobile app, on Android or iOS, you can just pull it out, quickly search for something. Oh, the VIN number to the car. Great. I can't remember that number. It's too long. But, some insurance company's asking me for it. I need my medical insurance card, or I need a digital copy of my driver's license, which I somehow left at home. Like all of those use cases where you might need a bit of information. I think people don't think of that use case, but that's one that we hear time and again. Oh, I just used it again, today for something. I had to find something that was all there. Great. So I think that's one. there's a really other interesting one called what we call household equity, which meaning in households today, there's generally so much stuff that it gets bifurcated across the parents, the home, the leaders in the household, that you manage one set of things, I'll manage another set of things. Maybe I'll manage education and healthcare, you manage finances. And I kind of don't know what's happening in that black box, right? And reciprocally on my side of the house. So Trustworthy is a way to bring that whole picture together with all the information in one place, so that both sides of the house know where to go, at least to find the things. If they're not getting a better picture of things on a day-to-day basis. So household equity is a great movement, if you like. There's actually a movement behind it that's around household share chores and who's doing what share of the work. But also across information sharing and who has access to what.
So with so many different use cases that you guys have, how do you go about which use case to market, and how do you market that?
Yeah, we tend to focus on the existential ones. You don't want your family, you love your family, you don't want your family to be out in the cold. Climate change is another big driver. You can't ignore the press lately about all the climate change related disasters. These things are big moments. The big ones that make people take action are, I had a friend or someone I know die unexpectedly. They were young. What if that happened to me? I'm getting on a plane today. I know plane travel is safe, but I can't ignore what happens in the press, Those are sort of existential questions like, yes, I know life is impermanent, life is fragile. Those are sort of the hot buttons that tend to work in public marketing, right? That you can create an ad around those kinds of moments and get people's attention. We tend to not push too hard on those, or we're trying to find an appropriate mix. And we tend to refer or rely on or prefer to have these sort of friendly referral kind of, your family, your extended family is using this, why don't you have a family operating system for your household? And it's sort of inevitable, as we see these things coming together, the sort of compute power that comes with AI, the complexity of running a modern household, there's a moment coming together where very likely everyone's going to have some version of a family operating system that's helping them stay on top of things, that's doing things on their behalf, making sure that they're not late and incurring, late fees or penalties or overages or cost to their credit. That number, by the way, is surprisingly or scarily high, almost $1,300 in late fees and penalties that the average American household is paying per year. These insipid little fees that creep in that you may not notice, that number keeps going up year over year.
And I believe it. When you look at the economy, it's like so many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and on top, I have 7 bills. They're all due 7 different days.
Yeah.
How do you remember? So it sounds like you hit on the big moments of the big life moments of that kind of make or break you to some degree, and you hit on those pain points. But it sounds like to some degree, there's only so many times you want to hit on the pain point, where it's not 100% pain point marketing, which is kind of what, I don't know about you, but I grew up hit the pain point, agitate it some more, and then offer the solution. It sounds like you guys kind of balance here's the pain with here's what's possible.
Yeah, I think we try to be empathetic, right, and convey empathy for look, we know managing your household is hard. You spend a lot of time doing it. There's a lot of paperwork to deal with that comes in. How do you deal with that? What's it like being the COO of your household is one of the ads that we have, for example, right? You're in a role, probably. You could be the CFO or the COO or some other similar role that you play in your household. And that role has responsibilities, that you feel pressure, you feel anxiety, like I've got to stay on top of these things, right? For the family. So we tend to lean into that side of things, like how can we help? We're here to help. We can help you manage this. We can help you stay on top of things. That sort of aspect to the marketing.
I like that. I think it balances really well. Like, okay, the extreme pain points, the softer, like chronic pain points, and then we're using this at the same time, the referral side of like, don't my neighbors want to use this because they have access to XYZ information as well, or some relative has access to my system. Don't they want this for themselves as well?
Yeah.
So that sounds like that's messaging. What does it look like on a more strategy and tactical level for marketing?
I mean, I think it feels like everyone's grasping right now to figure out, what will work, things are quickly evolving. What will it look like a month from now, right?
Yeah.
As we see things changing so rapidly with AI powered everything. For us, we have made an investment in content and around all those life moments. So, pretty heavy investment in search engine optimization that has now pivoted into LLM optimization. Practicing dark magic basically there, because no one really knows how to do that yet, even though they claim they do. And we've had some relatively early success, but we're not really sure how or why. Hopefully because of the good work that we've done on the SEO front. But that's a big part of it. And I think the advice here that I hear from a lot of growth marketing experts is, look, don't rely on external factors. Is your secret sauce is figure out how to build your own community, figure out how to build your own network. And so PLG, or product-led growth, is even more important now for us, right? Is getting our members to say nice things and have great testimonials, getting our members to send referrals, getting our members to just use the product and invite collaborators where it makes sense to them across their system. The next major version of Trustworthy that comes out later this year will also have an element of generative AI, which will give, unsurprisingly, will give members the ability to utilize the information in the system to get new things. For example, if you don't have a healthcare directive or a simple will, we can use the information that you have in Trustworthy to generate those kinds of things for you. And I think that's incredibly powerful, and will give us an ability to have even more of these tools out there that are available to members to be helpful, right? So today we have a eulogy writer, for example, incredibly helpful. Hundreds of people use that every month to draft at least a eulogy about a loved one. So we're going to have, more of these tools, and if you like user-generated versions of these kinds of colon prompts or templates in the next version of the product. So we're excited to sort of double down on things that we're building, things that we have, not rely on, Meta or some other, network. I mean, those things have their place as well. But I think the more that you can build up your newsletter, your community, your subscription, I think that's where the direction we see everyone headed in.
Yeah, and I have feelings about like Facebook, Instagram ads. It's like, okay, I can put $1 in and maybe get 3 back, depending on the product and cost of acquisition. But I always tell like my clients, it's like, that's great if you're going for like extreme level of growth, but and yes, it's sustainable as long as you always have money, but you're building on somebody else's land. Zuckerberg decides they don't like you, and you've invested $500,000 into Zuckerberg over the past 5 years, and your account gets shut down, or you get hacked, or you name it. And so how can you then go back and create content around your platform, both like outside of logins, public facing, as well as like internally for your users that keep them coming back over and over and over again. Because the only thing we ever truly own to some degree, and then it's still questionable, is our website. And so how do we...
Your website or your newsletter, subscription list, or your community that's helping you build content or using your product to build content. I think that's why these vibe coding apps are doing so well, is that, everything that gets built with their software, with their AI, is stuff that can be shared in the community, right? That can be available or is intentionally built to be shared. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you can create that kind of bankable, reusable content or use case, I think it's a good way to go build a business.
Yep, it's kind of like internal demand generation over and over and over again on repeat.
Yep.
So with tools that you have, you mentioned the Eulogy. What other tools are y'all building out?
Yeah, I mean, it's been led by the content that's been successful, that we've had success with, but almost any kind of use case, if you consider your household, and the software has an ability to say, hey, it looks like you don't have a trust or will, it looks like you don't have a healthcare director, or it looks like you don't have life insurance, or it could be something simple as that, oh, it looks like you have kids, and would you like to generate, a babysitter contact list? All that information likely exists in Trustworthy. We can help you generate that, so you can, share that easily with babysitters or grandparents or teachers or coaches or other folks that are caretakers for your children for some period of time, so that they have critical information about, well, who are the emergency contacts, are there any medical conditions or allergies, how do we generate something like that for you so you don't have to create it all from scratch, as a perfect use case of how we see generative content being helpful in your life, and really unlocking the information that you have in your family operating system so that you can do other things that you might need.
So with that, how much of that is conditional formulas and conditional codes if you see this section isn't filled out, versus this is AI coming in and looking at your entire system and saying, do this, do this, do this?
It's a little bit of both. Okay. So today we have AI that understands household documents. So if you upload something, our feature autopilot says, oh, I know what this is. This is a bank statement, or this is a letter from your insurance company, or this is a car registration. I know what all those things are. And it starts to build out this, what we call the household data graph, this graph of your information that's sort of mapping. Think of it as a mind map of your household. So extracts all the key meta information, so you can search it, suggests a better title, writes a summary for each document, and then does all that mapping so it knows, okay, well, this bank account relates to this property or this mortgage relates. These are the owners. You understand how your household works. And that's the AI that exists today. The next thing is really us creating a set of templates that says, if you don't have one of these, we can help you generate it using AI. So let's take a simple will, for example. We know some information about your household and who the household members are. We can ask you a couple of questions to clarify that and generate a simple will for you based on what we know. And if we don't know something, the system will say, okay, well, this template is, say, 87% complete based on what you've uploaded. If you upload these two documents, maybe a birth certificate and a marriage certificate, we can get that to 100% complete and generate that simple will for you. That's going to be hugely helpful to a lot of people who don't have some of the basics and want to go from 0 to 1. Maybe not be like a complex trust or many trusts, but so many people don't have those kinds of documents. We're looking to make a big increment or like, I'm taking an overseas trip. What are the things that I should have dialed in before I take that trip, and who should have that access to that information? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, I love that. So with all of the generative AI, with the recommendations, how are you getting that message to current customers, current users? Is that going to be through like email, through text message, through ads, through something else?
Yeah, we use email predominantly to communicate with our members. We're looking at SMS for things that need attention quickly. Like, we have a set of so when we ingest those documents, we create reminders based on expiration dates, and we notify members 90, 60, 30 days. So if you got to 15 days and your driver's license is still looking like it's expired, that would be a use case to send an SMS and say, hey, it's something urgent, needs to get some attention. So we always try to be appropriate in our communications.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I think what we, at this point in age, we're all tired of the constant text message notifications. Yeah. We're used to the emails, which we can ignore. We're not getting pings, or we are getting 100 pings a day and we ignore it. And what I've seen, especially in B2C spaces and retail, of like constant pings of like, here's a promotion, and it gets to be like, I don't need this, and it gets annoying. And I think finding the balance of, we want to use SMS because it has a level of like relevancy and urgency to it, and more people are likely to open it, but we don't want to be overbearing.
Yeah, it's especially important for us with a brand and a name like Trustworthy. We don't want to be a distraction. We want to be something that's, absolutely helping you manage your household and be in a secure, private posture with your information.
I love that. So you've had Trustworthy for a couple years. Looking back, if you could have done something differently, what would it have been?
I think this is the same as the big thing that's made a difference in our company. I would have done this sooner, and it's kind of boring, but it's this clarity of thought. I think in any company, but certainly in early stage companies, you have lots of distractions, and there's this joke about being the CEO of no. Like you have to be really good at saying no to things so that you can focus on things. And that's really the big thing that's made a difference in our company, is having these sort of distilling down our efforts and our work and the hours, every single hour that we work, focused on a very core, small number of things. We picked 3. And so an example early on for us was like, hey, let's create competitive differentiation by focusing on security and privacy. We really want to nail this product market fit for security in this very high trust category. This is important for us, and so we went very, very deep and very heavy on security and privacy across the platform, across the experience, and now believe, and defendably so, that we're in our industry the most secure and the most private solution you could adopt for your household information. The reality is, most families or lots of people do things that are very insecure on a day-to-day basis. So even just creating an account in Trustworthy is a great way to raise your security posture for your information. But that was a great distillation of like, let's pick this one area, and we spent years almost going very deep and getting things like SOC 2 and SOC 3 and HIPAA compliance and GDPR, even though it's not even a standard in the US. We have international users, so that became important. And just sort of security, privacy, core tenet, core belief, let's go very deep. The whole company is thinking and breathing and embodying that one effort for a long period of time until it's solved. Another one recently was the sign-up process was too complex.
Okay.
And so from the beginning of this year, we've run a set of experiments pretty much for 6 months to distill that down to what are the things you absolutely have to do before you get in the product. It's a really short list now. And we had to really challenge ourselves, right? In terms of what that list was and what things we were willing to experiment with and really push our boundaries, mostly around privacy and security. And now have sort of solved, like went from like 20% sign up rate to a 70+% sign up rate, to the point where we feel like we can't work on this anymore. Like, we just ran an experiment in the last 2 weeks, and it was kind of like, it wasn't really a decisive result in the sign up process. And so we're like, okay, well, let's put this, this feels solved, let's put this aside now.
Yep.
But coming back to it, it was really like, pick one thing or whatever number of things you feel. But for us, it was 3 at a time, and like, work on those 3. Everyone in the company can tell you what those 3 things are, because we talk about them at every all hands, at every call, at every meeting. Like, which one of the 3 things does this relate to? If it doesn't, let's not have a conversation or a meeting about it. But that really has moved the needle for our company beyond anything else that could really mention in terms of practices, philosophy, mind share, the echo chamber of our company. You know, all things distilled down to those 3 priorities, and it's moved the needle in so many ways.
I think that's so smart, because I think it's easy to try to focus on all the things all at once. And yes, the needle eventually gets moved, but it takes a minute. And so with your onboarding process, you went from 20% to 70%. So essentially, was that with paid users, free users? Because that sounds like a 3.5x revenue potential right there.
Yep. It was, a huge increment, but it was across multiple months and multiple experiments, and progressively tweaking the sign-up experience to be as simple as possible. Mm-hmm. And I think this was, if you consider it, makes absolute sense. Like, what's the shortest path to value for the member, right? How do you short circuit that as quickly as possible? And everything was in service of that. We ran, more than 15 experiments to sort of get to this result. And at this point now, we were like, let's not do this anymore, because it feels counterproductive in terms of how we're spending our time.
Yep.
So maybe we'll come back to it, but let's set it aside for now and focus on, now we're really focused on, is everyone having a great onboarding experience? You're in the dashboard. How do we get you from 0 to 60 very fast?
Well, I love that. And it's interesting, because we think so much of like, how can I optimize my marketing? When for you guys, it's really, how do I optimize my product?
Yeah, and obviously that pays dividends in your marketing too, right? That if you're spending money on any kind of acquisition, having a more efficient sign up and onboarding process is going to pay huge dividends.
Yep, and that's what I've seen across SaaS products, is the more streamlined you can make the initial 7 days on the platform, the more likely they are to stay a user for a long period of time if they have a good onboarding experience.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things that we did at the very beginning of the year was we switched away from a 2-week trial, a 14-day trial, to a freemium plan. Okay. So anyone can sign up for free now. There's a lot of reasons we did this, but it was based around another company that we did a deep dive on, that has in direct-to-consumer space, it has 80 or 90 million members. Okay. Not all of those members are paying, of course, but they have a lot of free users. And also the signal from our members saying, hey, 2 weeks wasn't enough time. Could I have more time in the product to try it out? And we just got to this point of like, the advice we got from that company, by the way, was their head of revenue worked in gaming. And he said in gaming, we gave an uncomfortable amount of stuff away for free, but we found that paid off. Like in the majority of cases, that always paid off, meaning someone who got more stuff for free got more adopted and eventually paid some money. And that was something that had also applied to SaaS, which I thought was fascinating. I don't know if we're being unreasonably generous yet, but we're being pretty generous. We had a lot of debates around
at some point. We'll see. How have you? And it's interesting that you say give as much as you can away for free, because that was kind of the marketing philosophy I grew up on. And then over the past kind of 3 or 4 years, I've seen a massive switch in that. And that, like, now everybody wants, there's less free lead magnets, less free guides, whatever. It's now more, pay me $27 to get anything at this point. So it's interesting that you guys have kind of done the exact opposite of everybody else.
Well, I think the pendulum swings as in most, things,
Yep.
right? Everything's cyclic. We had a lot of signals saying that this made sense for us to go to a freemium plan, partly because of the product-led growth, partly because, the biggest problem we're solving for is inertia, right? How do we go from high intent users who want to get organized and prepared and dialed in, want to get their house in order, to giving them enough time to sort of kick the tires and try it and get some of their information into the platform and feel comfortable with that, was a big consideration. We're earning trust as we go, right? So that was part of it is, hey, let's not time limit this. We want to be your partner. We think we're going to be your partner for a good chunk of your life. And let's invest in it together.
Right. And it's like an extra week of free is fine if I'm going to get you for the next 30 years. Like, okay, who at that point it's pennies on the dollar, so why not? And I think that's smart. Have you looked at which is converting better into paid users, whether it was the trial or the free turning into paid?
Where you mean where the users came from?
Yes, or so the current paid users what's kind of conversion rate from like the new freemium to paid versus here's a trial for 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's gone up considerably. I can't isolate freemium because we've had so many experiences, but we saw a nice uptick related to freemium, and then we were laying on all these other experiments at the same time.
I love that, and I think it's just smart. If you can figure out how to do freemium long term and then upsell them when they're ready, it does you good. Because I'm on a free trial for SaaS right now, and it's 2-week free trial, and I'm like, okay, week 1, I didn't have time for this. Right. I have 1 week left. Okay, I'm like looking at my calendar, and I'm like, okay, when am I going to have time to figure all this out? Because it's a lot of stuff that needs to get uploaded into this software to even see if it's actually worth it.
Don't need that pressure, right? Do it when you have a moment. I think the other thing that we're looking at is, how do we automatically ingest content for you rather than you having to do it, create it yourself. Mm-hmm. That'll be a part of the next motion as well around more automation. We know we can build it out for you over time if you let us. So what are the ways that we might do that?
I love that. I think that's smart. The easier you can make it to upload what needs to be uploaded, the better. And I say that having 3 days, maybe it was last night, I called my grandmother of like, hey, what is it going to take for you to scan in all the family photos? And she's like, go ask your uncle. And I'm like, well, okay. It's like, okay, how do we make this, especially for older generations, how do we make the user experience as easy as possible, especially so it feels wild to say, but so many people didn't grow up on technology and still struggle with it. So how do we take a platform where most people are like, a lot of people know how to use apps, most do, but some of probably your best users are not tech savvy and are doing good just to hit the open button on the app.
Yeah, I feel that. I was with my own mother over the summer, and she's been a Trustworthy member for a while, but wanted to upload some stuff and was using the mobile app, and watching her try to use our app with large type and zoomed in the screen, realizing it wasn't working for her at all, was a great opportunity to come back to our product team and say, hey, there's a huge use case here with elderly people that our app just doesn't work sufficiently well enough for. We got to make some adjustments. We have actually, you're sort of hinting at this idea that we've built out a national network of people who came from different walks of life and have gone through background checks and certification on a platform that can actually go help a family member or help you if you're in the time-starved category or you just want to outsource it to get all that paper documentation digitized and securely stored in Trustworthy. It's very popular with kids who want their parents to do it, but know their parents don't feel that comfortable with technology and want someone to sort of guide them through it and show them. And once they get the gist of it, of course, they can do it themselves.
Okay.
But it's just that initial, like, hey, let's make a start and I'll show you how it works, and then you can keep going, or I can keep helping you. So we call these folks Trustworthy Certified Experts. They're available in the US and Canada, and they love doing this. They come from this background of being photo experts or household organizers, professional organizers, or downsizing or right-sizing managers, and sort of end-of-life state transition folks, professionals of afterlife service, come from all walks of life. They're amazing folks, and they love working with families to help them get organized and prepared.
I love that. That is super cool. And it takes the app and makes it personal in a way that no other app realistically could.
Yeah, we're very family centered, and we've obviously learned a lot from our members as we go and try to adapt.
I love that. So if we fast forward a couple of years, maybe a couple decades, you're retiring. What is the one story or like the one memory, the one moment from your time at Trustworthy that you would tell at your retirement party?
We're both fortunate and challenged in that we have a distributed company. We decided to do this ahead of the pandemic, believe it or not, that we said, okay, what would it look like if we built startups in the Bay Area before, in Silicon Valley, and that's both good and bad. And we said, what would it look like if we were to mirror a company called Basecamp or 37 Signals, who intentionally built a distributed company and have people hired all over the world. And so that's what we did. And I'm really proud of that. And I love the cultural diversity that we have because of that. So we have folks in Turkey, we have folks in Spain, we have folks in Portugal, Brazil, US, Canada, working at different hours of the day, and it's amazing. And once a year, we bring those folks together for about a week to have a team meetup and hang out and connect in person with our teammates. And I think these are end up being the most memorable experiences that we talk about for the whole year until we have another one. Last year we were in Portugal. Feels like we're at the end of the Portugal traveling spree. Portugal has been so popular, but now I understand why. We had just the best, shared experiences, bonding experiences there. Great culture. And some of the family members now have kids that they were able to bring on the trip with them. So you get to meet the next generation of trustworthy workers.
Oh, I love
and because we're so family-centric, that's so great to see. So it'd be those kinds of moments, those stories where we have those shared experiences that is probably what I'll remember the most from Trustworthy.
What's the best location that y'all have ever had the company get together at?
I don't know that I could pick one. They're all great for different reasons. Portugal's most recent in my memory. Mexico City was memorable because almost everyone got sick at some point.
Oh, okay.
Either from altitude sickness or from eating street food. So yeah, they all have something a little different. That was a fantastic trip as well, of course, but they're all different in different ways.
You learn, and very much business has its ups and downs.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. If people want to connect with you guys further, learn more about what you're doing, where should we send them?
Yeah, they can just go to trustworthy.com, sign up for a free account if they want, and contact us, contact support. Let us know if you have any questions. I'm happy to take questions, and would love to help. If we can help your family, would be happy.
I love it. And also with trustworthy.com, it's no weird spelling. It's trustworthy the way you think it should be spelled.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, for everyone tuning in today, thank you so much for joining. And remember, if you're looking to find the perfect fit marketing agency, you can schedule a free strategy session over at perrysunnetwork.com. And we will catch you on the next episode of Humans of Growth.